I have here Michael Van Avery, honored guest. Welcome. For 15 years, Michael Van Avery has been the president of Republic Urban Properties, RUP for short, one of the largest commercial real estate developers in Silicon Valley. It's also the Bay Area flagship of the Republic family of companies known for developing institutional quality real estate throughout the United States. Michael works with federal, state, and local governments on the creation and development of smart growth projects, such as master planned communities near transportation hubs, urban mixed-use projects near major employment centers, and innovative public-private partnerships. In his 25 years of representing major institutional and private real estate developers in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, Michael has led complicated projects from land acquisition to completion. Under his leadership, RUP has gained national attention for its transit-oriented development projects at key transit stations, working as the premier public-private partner with many transit authorities across California. Michael has been involved with the planning, financing, construction, and delivery of 1,238 multifamily units and 145,000 square feet of mixed-use commercial space, 380 hotel rooms, 151,000 square feet of office, and 120,000 square feet of retail in various stages of development at 1.5 billion in value. He's a third-generation San Jose native. Michael is an active member of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. Very shortly about myself, I'm the president and CEO of 10 Plus Brand, Inc. It's a full-service brand building, content creation, and digital marketing agency. We are an award-winning agency in the San Francisco Bay Area. Okay, first question, Mike. Tell us about yourself, your personal stories, your family. Why do you do what you do? How did your journey end up here? And where is it going?
Well, thank you, Joanne, and thank you for having me on this wonderful podcast. I appreciate it. So as you mentioned in my bio, I'm a third-generation San Jose resident. My family is deeply rooted in the South Bay, specifically San Jose. And they were immigrants from Italy on my mom's side, which is still a very prominent kind of immigration here in the South Bay. And with that, they were grocery clerks, they were grocery store owners, they were bakers, and they arrived here in the early 1900s on my mom's side and owned small businesses, very similar to many great immigrant groups in this wonderful country we live in. My father's family came from really from the east in Nebraska. They were actually back residents of the United States back in its early infancy in the Revolutionary days and migrated westward as expansion and opportunity happened here in California. My dad's side are iron workers and house movers. And so the combination of those two families from my mom and dad's side had deep influence into my life. Whether it's working and owning a grocery store, and that kind of blue collar route that really drove me to respect how hard people work, but also as a younger man seek educational opportunities. And it just so happened that the real estate industry combines all of those facets. It combines a blue collar workforce with a white collar direction, understanding how much money and time it takes to build things. As far as where I'm at, I love my job as the managing partner here at Republic Urban Properties. And where we're going is a continued investment in the South Bay and the greater Bay Area. My family's rooted here. We're actually moving our corporate headquarters from downtown San Jose, where we're currently filming this podcast, into the Willow Glen Business District, where we'll construct a 15,000-foot building, $11 million, 8,000 square feet for our offices, and then a 6,000 square foot rooftop restaurant, which I'm very proud of. So where we're going is another 10, 15 years at least. with Republic, depending on our pipeline.
Mhm.
And we're excited to continue to move through this great real estate industry.
Wonderful. So what is the most important thing that you value?
I value integrity. And I think to be a respected real estate professional, a marketing professional, in the world of social media where there's a lot of misinformation, I think the real estate industry has always provided an opportunity that if you have integrity and you develop what you promise and you deliver that to the community, to the financial markets, that gives you the integrity that people desire and also helps shape your brand.
Yes, trust. Yes. Now, what are your biggest accomplishments and the biggest learning lessons / failures?
My most recent accomplishment that I'm very proud of, and that we accomplished in 2019, is the Gateway at Millbrae Station project, which is 400 units of housing, 150,000 feet of office, 165 key Marriott Residence Inn with mixed use of about 44,000 square feet of retail, roughly about $500 million of construction costs, but once stabilized, probably $2 billion worth of valuations. It started in 2013, and it kicked off construction in 2019. Very long journey in a public-private partnership, but very, very satisfying because our partners there are Bay Area Rapid Transit, BART, and as well as the city of Millbrae. And I think that's something that we as a company are excited about, that it's been a long endeavor, but it's very fruitful as it finishes and opens here in 2022. My failures, I would say that I try to minimize those, but nevertheless, in real estate, you're always going to have hopefully many successes, a few failures. And that probably would go with some of our retail investment, especially we have a large project, which we love the location, off of the 580 in El Charro in Livermore, called Republic Square. It's a wonderful, wonderful location, but because of the times, retail, specifically restaurants, are very difficult to lease. So I'm not going to call it a failure, but it's been a challenge. And so, but again, that's the boom bust nature of real estate.
Right. So COVID, how is it affecting commercial and residential real estate development? Office buildings, retails, hotels, apartments, housing projects, public transit, mixed-use projects, etc. How do you view the new remote work impacting new commercial office development?
Yes, and that's an excellent question, Joanne. Remote work is a real catch-22 for the commercial real estate industry. It is a hindrance for office. It is a hindrance for retail, especially new retail development. I mentioned Livermore. And it's a hindrance for hotel. And so I think when we look back 10 years from now, all of us will probably say that we overreacted to the pandemic. In other words, limiting small business limits retail. It by nature shut down hundreds of thousands of square feet. It has the remote work has affected how companies now view their office buildings. Well, office buildings typically are located in downtown cores. Downtown cores are served by transit. Transit now is severely impacted through the pandemic. Now, some would argue that that's a good thing. We have less traffic. However, we've invested billions upon billions of dollars of public money into Bay Area Rapid Transit, into the Valley Transportation System, and into our freeways and infrastructure. And with the idea that commercial real estate, specifically office and retail, would locate in these downtown cores, and that would be joined by new transit development, apartments, hotels, and other things to support convention centers, to support small business. And so the pandemic has absolutely taken a massive chunk out of the commercial real estate industry. Now, will it come back to full strength? I don't think it ever will, especially for retail. I do think that there will be a rethinking of corporate campuses moving forward, that hybrid work systems will be more of the norm in the future. It remains to be seen what the demand for commercial real estate will be in the office, retail, and hotel asset classes. But clearly, COVID has had a severe effect.
Right. So when you say downtown corridors, it's corridors, right?
Downtown core.
Core, C-O-R-E.
C-O-R-E. For example, downtown San Jose. The core would be around the convention center, the Fairmont Hotel. You would look at Union Square in San Francisco, or of course the business district there on California Street in San Francisco have been severely affected by COVID.
Yes. Yeah, lots going to change. Now, will the future development of office space have habitational space associated with it?
Sure. I think mixed use of all types, office with hotel has been done in major cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles. Office and apartments have had mixed use components as well. I would say yes, but I'd also say that the cost side of those are very difficult to accomplish, and typically you see those in high-rise developments. And I think that high-rise developments in the near term are a little cloudy with construction costs, and of course, who is going to be your office tenant. I do think apartments as standalone will continue. To further illustrate your question, we will see potentially the conversion of office into habitat, into residential units. I do see that as a possibility because there are some large cities like New York, for example. There's a number of projects being considered as transitioning from an office to a residential property. And look, that might be a good strategy to tackle affordable housing. If you have an existing structure and there is public money available, it might be the solution to house people at a cheaper cost than the millions and millions of dollars that it takes, hundreds of millions, to build affordable housing.
Yes, always a silver lining of given, whatever the changes, the pandemic induced or not. So because affordable housing has always been a really big problem for all major cities in the United States. Okay, number 6, wildfires, climate change, California's water shortage. How are these 3 things impacting both commercial and residential real estate development?
So natural disasters, the ones you mentioned specifically, have a material effect on commodity pricing and labor. And specifically the wildfires have been, devastating from a quality of life, day to day. But it also a real effect when it affects properties and structures. When we saw the destruction that past wildfires have done in places like Sonoma County and other places like that, it has driven commodity pricing like wood and of course labor that goes with some of that commodity pricing, and has greatly affected the ability to have as affordable pricing as you can. So if you couple the natural disasters with the man-made disasters of the pandemic, it kind of creates a perfect storm for new construction. And at a recent conference hosted by Marcus and Millishap, it's evident that to build a new podium project, a wood frame, say 4 stories over a podium structure, we can't achieve the financing metrics to make a bank or an equity investor attracted into that deal. So these natural disasters just again contribute to the already man-made issues that we've created. And it's tough, and especially in California, Florida, and those other places that might be affected by hurricanes or tornadoes or flooding. It's a serious issue, and it all ties back to the cost of construction.
Right. So the labor is in shortage, the materials are priced higher than before, and the supply chain is broken, and that makes the price goes even further. So it's getting more and more costly to build commercial or residential, yet the demand for at least the residential housing is increasing because more people are working remotely, so they want a comfortable place, an affordable place to live. Now, so that makes the real estate, I mean, it's going to be always more in demand and less in supply.
Sure.
But places like Paradise or Lake Tahoe, where the wildfires have burned, so many acres and the houses are all burned. Do you think people will go back in the same place and build again just to be burned again? I mean, are people choosing less hazardous places to build both residential and commercial buildings?
I don't think it's the choice. I think given the choice of the consumer, they'll choose to go back to those locations. The question becomes that of how do you serve that consumer? For example, Pacific Gas and Electric, which sadly it has been the reason for some of these fires. And again, I think PG&E is doing the best job they can recently to stay on top of these natural disasters. But nevertheless, the question should be asked, do we want to extend services in remote locations to serve the demand of housing? And that maybe is not for me to answer. That's probably for our governors and our board of supervisors and our city councils. But also, it's not just the services of power, but is there water supply also in those locations that can also serve these residents? It is an issue. And then, of course, the last part of that is the cost. And in some cases, insurance agencies will not fund or provide insurance, especially fire, in these hazardous zones. So I do believe that, again, this gets back to why we've had the strategy of building in our downtown cores, and that we want to live in nodes and villages that allow for us to get out of the automobile, where power is abundant and solar energy can be provided in a mass kind of situation. So I do think that building remote will become a less and less strategy to house people. But again, given the consumer, anyone would say, I'd love to live in Lake Tahoe if I could afford it.
Okay, so number 7, Silicon Valley is full of world's largest monopolies, such as Google, Facebook. Google has been buying land in the valley pretty aggressively. How has that impacted your business?
Excellent question. It has driven land cost up extraordinarily high. If you go back to the Trump administration, when he took the presidency and the Republicans took control of Congress, about 6 years ago, there was the repatriation of a lot of offshore money by the high-tech companies. And we're talking billions and billions of dollars that would have otherwise went into an Irish bank offshore to be protected from, capital gains taxes. And what happened was when that the deal occurred, and people, companies like Facebook, Google, Apple, and others have been investing in the United States into properties, especially in the Bay Area in California. New York's a great example in Hudson Yards. And what has happened is that they've come in and they've created a lot of speculation with them. In the case of San Jose, where you could buy land for maybe $40 a foot in the Midtown area of San Jose, now sells for $150, $200 a foot in a matter of years. So the speculative nature that high tech and their investment or commercial property has created, it's not unusual. I mean, that's something that you want to see. You want to see investment and valuation created by these investments by high tech. But what it has done is it has, depending on what side of the aisle you're on politically speaking, there is an issue of equity, and then there's an issue of who's going to move into these locations. And that's been a central debate in cities like San Jose, as Google has planned their campus. But in the case of San Jose and in the case of the Google investment, they have created a relatively good plan to address equity issues and to address the new development that will come in to benefit the entire city and most importantly, the economy in general in San Jose. But it has, the investment by high tech has absolutely affected almost every aspect of real estate development in the major metropolitan areas.
Mhm. Okay, what messages do you have for Silicon Valley giants like Google, Apple, Facebook, Cisco, Oracle related to the current COVID remote working situations and related to all their other monopolistic powers, more than COVID's return to work issues?
Get back to work. Get your employees back to work. We're running at in the high 70s of vaccinated people, and mandate vaccinations and try to restore faith in the fact that we will never, COVID will always be here in one shape or form, but that we now have ways to deal with COVID. The first way is to get vaccinated. And I think that, as you're seeing across the country, mandates will likely be here to stay. And to your point, if you're a monopoly, and in this case, some of these companies could be monopolies, I wouldn't go that far, but then you should mandate people to get back to work. I don't believe this remote work is a sustainable business plan, despite the employee, acknowledgement or influence that this is a better way for them to work. I do not believe that at all, and I think that ultimately it will be wrought with challenges of production. I also think that it could be as people work more from home, it will allow Silicon Valley to make deeper cuts potentially if there are layoffs. And I fear for those people that think that working from home is the panacea for the long term, because there's not enough innovation is done when you are working with other people, and it's not working over a virtual platform, which you and I are doing. I think this platform for a podcast or for a video cast or a meeting where you're spending time, instead of traveling on a plane, you're going to spend time having this conversation, and obviously there's a value there for travel dollars. But from a day in and day out perspective,
yes,
I just don't understand why we're not looking to get people back in their offices.
yes.
That also will provide more jobs and support services. People forget that a lot of these large campuses have janitors. They have cooks and employees that support the large companies like Facebook and Apple. And those people right now are they don't know if they're going to have jobs, which means we could lose them out of the region forever. And we already have a problem finding people to do all sorts of jobs that are not high tech, $200,000 a year. So it creates more digital divide and more social equity issues. And yet Silicon Valley is promoting a virtual workplace. So I've always had a problem with Silicon Valley also in that, with a very few exceptions, they're not very generous individually. You do not see large parks or new theaters built after billionaires as they did in the turn of the century, when you had the Rockefellers and the Pritzkers and the others that built monuments to cities, to people in these cities, to foster arts and education. A lot does happen, and I'm probably generalizing it, but I'd like to see some of these high net worth folks that make zillions in the stock market turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to help this school district. I'm going to build this art center. I'm going to fix this community issue here. It's very spread out, and it's very self-interested based upon their tax situation. So my message to Silicon Valley is stop being so cheap and invest in your communities.
Excellent point. And internally, it's good for them because culture building, team building, you need to have in-person contact. And that's how we met. We met at the Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce event. It was in person. And then we chatted and I followed up. I cannot imagine meeting you solely virtually and would be interested in what you're doing. And you're absolutely right. Those monopolies, they have responsibilities to the communities. They have responsibilities to the economy. Okay, it's not just them, just whatever is best for their bottom line. Their bottom line is linked, is related to the prosperity, to the vibrancy of the community. There is a whole community of supportive services. So they need to really have a sense of urgency. They need to play the leadership role, not just the bottom line. Okay, and in the long term, the bottom line will be negatively affected if they keep this kind of a remote working model, because people are social animals. They need interaction. They need, innovation is a contact sport. You got to be in the contact of others to stimulate growth and to have innovative ideas. Okay, so that's their monopoly power. The better you put it to the best use. Post-pandemic as well, okay?
Sure.
Number 9, with the deep roots in Silicon Valley for generations, what in your experience makes or breaks your deals in the Valley?
I think the integrity that I mentioned prior and the ability to demonstrate a record of success, and it has to be the baseline for any good real estate developer. And we've got some really good ones here in the South Bay, as we do in the Bay Area. And so it's a very fierce competition to get those prized properties. And so someone like myself and Republic, I think that one of our advantages is because I am a third generation San Josean, that I'm very comfortable with the politics and the neighborhood, matters that you have to work through. Those are just part of my job. And that we work very hard in the community. You mentioned philanthropy in our last conversation. Republic Urban Properties is in the top 50 of philanthropic organizations in the entire Bay Area. And we're ahead of companies like, believe it or not, Clorox, which is a multi-billion-dollar company. And so we use that philanthropic platform to make sure that we promote and practice what we preach, and that that we value education and children, that we want solutions to house people of all types, that we want to make sure that community-based organizations are successful, and that they're, that we're partnered with them in the right way that has something to do with profit. And I think that separates Republic Urban Properties from other people, where you can say, well, hey, you did great on that project. You made millions of dollars. Congratulations. All the investors made a bunch of money. The question is, what do we do with that money? And where did it go? Did it go back to an organization outside of the Bay Area or even outside of the country? And the answer is no. Those dollars continue to stay local, and they continue to recirculate, not just for profit reasons, but also for nonprofit reasons that really go to my core values as a Catholic and as a Jesuit, in that we need to teach, and we need to teach the children, but we need to teach people how to be generous, not just with their money, but with their time, and of course with other people. So I think that what separates Republic a little bit, at least I'd like to think so. And again, that's not something that we try to promote. We try to make you understand by what we're doing, and so we hope people will follow our lead.
You just answered my last question. What does your brand stand for? That was an excellent answer. Okay, so I'm quoting you. Okay, you said, quote, "The government is 100% responsible for the housing shortage," unquote. Please explain why.
Well, it's like anything else. It's regulated 100%. So in other words, I can't. There are some cities like Houston that you can build anything you want, really, whenever you want. But that's not the case in California, and we're governed by local jurisdictions. The state of California has helped us a little bit by accelerating state bills which put requirements on local government to approve more housing. But make no mistake, in a lot of cases, even when you get a government approval, like a city council approval for an apartment complex, that could be sued and that could end up in the court system and you could lose the entire project. But yes, real estate development and the demand for housing is 120% impacted. I'll add another 20% to that 100 by, by local government. And it's why California has consistently, under approved new housing units. I mean, realistically, the state of California should do 200 to 300,000 housing units a year. We typically do a little over 100,000, and depending on the economy, it could be less than that. And so and yet we have 40 million people living here, with many more that come in through migration, both internationally and then of course nationally, in addition to illegal immigration that happens in droves as well. So all of those contributing factors, and then you're relying upon a local city council to approve things, and then how long it takes to get that approval. So yeah, it's in some regards, like the pandemic, it's a self-inflicted gun wound that we consistently shoot ourselves with and put ourselves behind in the production of housing. I think people are working hard more than ever. Our governor, our legislator, we have amazing housing advocates. So I don't want to make it as an anti-government platform, but the numbers do equal the lack of supply of housing, and that is a result of government.
Yes. Now we have a message for the California legislators. They need to be really tackle this issue of overregulation and streamline the permit approval process and make it the state issue rather than just local municipalities issue. It's a lot of talk. They are keenly aware of the housing shortage. It's just get it done, get it done. All right. So number 11, will the increase in warehouses due to the so-called Amazon effect permanently continue while the decrease in brick-and-mortar retail services last beyond the pandemic?
Yeah. So anecdotally, I got tired of shopping online the other day, and I decided I'd go with my beautiful wife, Jennifer, and we went to Santana Row and to Westgate shopping there at Valley Fair. I had a great time. I really miss being out and shopping at a storefront location, and enjoyed that experience immensely. And that made me, to your question, it is becoming an endangered kind of commercial asset. That is the brick and mortar, small business retail. It's very difficult. And most of those places that I shopped at were all, larger, well-funded, in some cases, international brands. And so there's no incentive to open up a hobby shop, a toy store, in some cases, even a grocery store now, understanding that Amazon really fulfills, an electronic, a good kind of, good or service, and not so much a service, but any kind of goods that you're looking to purchase can be done within a second and a click. And so I don't think you're ever going to win that struggle against Amazon. I think what we need to do is we need to continue to work with Amazon and these other, and the Walmarts and others, and really, like they do with housing, mandate that they provide a certain amount of small business with their locations. For example, Amazon is now starting to put more storefront operations in some of their industrial warehousing. For example, the boxes that you receive, they're now looking to encourage that you return those there, and then they'll have some storefront shopping opportunities where you might say, hey, I need to pick up this or that, and Amazon provides that location. And maybe Amazon allows a small minority-owned business to actually lease that space and run that operation for them. I think if we start to get that kind of cooperation from these larger big box, instead of just consuming and swallowing up the small businesses. As an example, my family used to own 10 grocery stores in the greater San Jose metropolitan area. As the larger Safeways and others began to expand in the superstores, And then Walmart came into the area. My family's grocery stores could no longer compete. And they were slightly mismanaged in their own right through second generations. But nevertheless, that didn't help the macro strategy of the Amazons and Safeways and others and Walmarts that moved in. So I think that there's got to be a government should look to potentially regulate some of this, but it's difficult because in the free market system, and when every city is chasing sales tax dollars to fund their general funds, which repairs potholes, which funds the police and fire. When you have local government chasing sales tax dollars, they don't really care. They just want more sales tax dollars. So the idea of an Amazon having a warehouse there and sales that might come out of that warehouse potentially, that's fine with them, the government, maybe the local government. So it's a real conundrum, and I'm not sure that local government has the expertise to really govern and create better opportunities for this. It might have to come out of the state someday, but for now, it's a losing war if you're a small business. You're lucky to be around, and you're probably not going to be around for the long term.
Is that the same reason for the dying of malls, shopping malls? Same reason, because they are actually what's inside the shopping mall are all these mama papa, brick and mortar stores. Wow. Okay. Yeah. 12. What are the challenges for realizing internal return on investment, ROI, for real estate investors?
Yeah, great question. It's all about cost right now, Joanne. It's we want to achieve on a commercial apartment, new development, 250 units as an example, over a podium project, say of 2 or 3 stories. That project's probably going to cost $150 million on average. Okay. You want to get a return on cost of about 5.5%, 5.5% return on cost, which means your internal rate of return should be around 20-25%. And that's difficult to do right now because we can only charge so much rent with construction costs continually rising. And that's where we're at right now. We're at a standstill for new construction. I mean, you're seeing some construction here or there. A lot of that was probably done in 2019. Some of that's affordable housing. But as far as starting new apartment projects now in like San Jose, San Francisco, Oakland, Walnut Creek, the major cores, with the cost of construction, it's virtually impossible. And we're all sitting around now asking ourselves, when is this going to change? Well, we know this. We know that we can't push rents that much further, understanding that we have the highest rents in the nation, in some cases the world. And so we keep looking to the fact that maybe we'll get a better deal on construction costs. Yet we have inflation, we have supply chain issues, we have labor, rate issues. So for now, we're again in that perfect storm of rents being capped, construction costs still rising, and we're not able to move to that next level. And that's what that's doing now is it's causing companies like myself to look outside of the 9-county Bay Area and maybe in more build for rent opportunities in places like Fairfield or Sacramento. What I mean by build for rent is townhomes for rent, single family homes for rent. That seems to be where the industry is moving for the time being. But again, someone like myself would much rather be building in my hometown a mixed use project that I could deliver. And yet I'm not able to do that right now. And candidly, here we are in 2021 Q4. I do not see a pathway to do that in 2022.
Mm-hmm. That is profoundly impacting the future of Silicon Valley because, a couple of years ago, there was already a lot of exodus from Silicon Valley. Very good companies moving out of state to Utah, to Texas, Nebraska. Well, I don't see any reversal of that trend based on what you just described. Okay, now imagine yourself as someone with money to invest in real estate. What would you invest in right now? Industrial properties such as warehouses, residential townhouses, or duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, or single family homes for rent, land only?
Wow. If I were to invest personally, I would look for, opportunities in build for rent in some of these off-market locations that I mentioned: Fairfield, Hollister, Salinas, Vacaville, the Sacramento areas, even Manteca and places like that. But I would look in areas that are supported by a very good infrastructure. Uh, I still like the train stations, and there are train stations in the Capitol Corridor, for example, is a good line that a lot of people can take to Sacramento to the Bay Area. I do like those build for rent opportunities. I do think that industrial has, especially existing industrial, if you can find a core location like San Jose, for example, or even parts of Santa Clara would be another great example, and you find a 50, 100,000 foot warehouse, there will always be the need for those uses inside the core, and those are excellent long-term investments for families that maybe are looking to do a 1031 exchange, maybe into that product. I also would say that there are some great shopping center locations that while retail, is still a little down, there are some great existing locations and services that you'll consistently need from now to the end of time, anchored by grocery stores, and then the ancillary uses that would go with the grocery store anchor. I do think those are good, infill opportunities. Last but not least, I am a believer still in apartment projects and of all types, and making sure that you're working with the right developer, like a Republic, that maybe like, for example, we have a friends and family program, and we do preferred interest versus ownership, which is more risky. So if you look for preferred interest into real estate projects, there are still 7 to 12% returns that you can achieve on your money on a yearly compounded basis that are out there. But real estate is still the best investment. I have a 1030. I have a 401k. I have some stock portfolio, but I look at it and say, oh God, I guess this works, and I guess the stock market's going to do its thing. Whereas with real estate, I can own it, I can control it, I can live it, and it's just fun. And frankly, it's still the best return on investment once you find the right property.
Yes. So you almost answered all of my next question. Just see if there's anything to add. Okay. Where would you advise commercial real estate investors to invest, if all things being equal, Silicon Valley or elsewhere, and why?
Silicon Valley is a great long-term investment. You just can't go into commercial real estate thinking that you're going to get your money back, right away. So anyone that wants to be in commercial real estate better understand this. It takes a while. And so I always marvel at some of the people that want to get into our industry and how did you get where you're at, and how do I get there and make that kind of money? Well, guess what? Any investment that you do with me is a 5-year business plan, and it might be longer depending on the tax ramifications of the investors. And so, I think if you're committed to a long-term investment, if you like where, jobs and great weather is, then Silicon Valley is where you should be, but you better bring your wallet and your dad's wallet and everybody else with you, because it's not going to be inexpensive. And that's unfortunate, because, we would like to get more people in to this great region, but it tends to be the high net worth people that invest in Silicon Valley. I will say this, there's been a lot of these opportunity zones that have come up. I'm not a huge believer in some of that opportunity zone investment, so be careful. It might be a way to dodge your tax capital gain issue, but that's if you're going just to dodge your capital gains, great. That's wonderful. Just never expect that money back, because that's the thing about commercial real estate. Unless you're in control of it, and you are the person that are calling the shots, there's no guarantee you'll ever get that money back.
Okay. Now,
read the fine print.
Yes, always. Yeah. Is AI, smart cities, smart projects, and sustainability technology changing the way the buildings are built? And I have two folds this question.
Yeah.
Is like now people build residential single family home, they expect like using Alexa's Siri, to voice control everything. And the other aspect of this, with the technology, lower your cost for building, because right now you are in a big hole of this labor shortage, and the supply chain broken, and also the materials are getting more expensive.
Certainly technology, whether you want to classify it as artificial intelligence or we're seeing that now with prefab technology. So anything that's built off site, trucked, shipped, railed in, unloaded, and then man constructs. And I don't know if that will change too much on the back end, which means the carpenter and the electrician. I don't see a lot of new AI technology or machine technology that will replace that skilled labor, at least in the real estate construction industry. What I do see, however, on the front end, and I mentioned the prefab, and for example, at the gateway at Millbrae Station, we're putting together a system called a light gauge framing system called Prescient. It's constructed, it's actually a software. So we work with the software designers to essentially fit together the framing aspects of light gauge metal construction as the frame. And all of that is manufactured in a warehouse in Colorado. And it's all put together and it's then shipped by truck or trucked from Colorado over the Rockies, over the Sierras, here to the Bay Area. And then it's put together on site using a QR code that scans, and that event basically comes together like an erector set, like you would put together an erector set as a child. And that all has been from the innovation of prefab technology. So like I said, I think on the front end, we're continuing to see some great innovation with AI, software, and lots of great innovation. You're also seeing that with prefab, where things are being built, like full bathrooms now are being built off-site, trucked, shipped, railed over, craned in, and assembled on site by man labor. On the back end, I'm not seeing much innovation beyond just good skilled people, but on the front end, certainly we will continue to see more innovation.
Right, innovation is always going to solve the whatever the crisis and issues. Okay, so I'm curious about what do you know, or what you think about the one, quote unquote, in LA. You heard of the one? That's the
No, I have not.
Oh, it's the most expensive residential house ever built.
Huh.
Hundreds of millions of dollars, and now nobody wants to buy it. It's over the top access, and well, never mind. It was talked about.
Have Elon Musk buy it.
Who?
Have Elon Musk buy it.
He sold his houses. He doesn't want to own any earthly belongings.
That's right.
I know. So let's move to the next one. Okay, how do you think the Biden administration's infrastructure spending can help with real estate development?
Well, you mentioned the question earlier about helping out through natural disasters, and I think bottom line is this: let's create more reservoirs, and let's create more supply for human beings. And water chiefly comes up as the number one thing here in California. As far as what else will happen with that spending plan, I am. And look, I'm a centrist, and so I don't have a lot of patience for the left, and I don't have a lot of patience for the right. I'm right down the middle, and so in some cases I'm misrepresented by both of them. I don't like all of these spending plans as much, because one of the problems that we have is we're spending a lot, and we're not necessarily telling us who's going to repay that spending. And so what happens with those spending plans is they become a platform for other issues. And that's unfortunately what's happening with this spending plan. By its definition, it could be an amazing thing in that if that money got to a water district to build a new reservoir, if that money got to a transit agency to expand transit ridership, or a local government to help out on its fair share of building new roadways and other infrastructure. If it works like that, then I'll be extremely happy. But as of yet, it seems to continue to change, and it confuses me, and I'm pretty sophisticated. And so my hope is that we just land on something that will benefit, if anything, a better water supply in California.
Right. You did mention the word cheap water. Did you say the word
water supplies? Yeah. So a supply of water that's not going to cost, ratepayers double of what they're paying today. And so we need, sustainable water supplies that is affordable for its consumers.
Okay. So what can the federal government do to ease the labor shortage?
Well, we could fix immigration or define immigration. We are a nation that relies on immigration to service our great industries. And you don't have to go any farther than Japan to see an immigration problem, and their economy has been stagnant for a generation now. And so, we are a nation of immigrants, and we have to embrace that, and we have to have compassion towards that, and we have to have pragmatism, so we can have a highly skilled workforce of all levels, not just at the highest professor level, but also the people that are going to staff our assembly lines, that are going to pick our produce, and that are going to basically work in our industries, because we don't have high enough birth rates in the United States of America. We need to have more children. So any of you that are 25 and 35, have children. Because if we have children or work hard in a productive way to challenge your elected leaders to make sure that we have a good immigration policy. I'm not talking about letting everybody run the borders and run in. I'm talking about, doing what we do here and making sure that America still has a great immigration policy for everyone to have a fair share to come here, but to work here, not to get a handout.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. What do you want the state and local governments to do now and after the pandemic for the real estate market and the economy?
Great question. Locally, get out of the way and let us build things and stop. There's a crane fee, crane, crane fee in the city. They're actually proposing a crane fee.
For what? For using a crane?
In San Jose, and I'm losing my mind, because we're trying to say, wait a minute, and they want to do that because the airport, they want to create more user fees for the airport. It's insane. It's insane. So on the local level, stop it. Stop the madness. Okay, get out of it. Also on the local level, stop creating more mandates that are going to create things that are going to be more expensive. For example, the REACH code is another Berkeley, San Jose, San Francisco. It's in other words, no more natural gas for houses, only electric, all electric, because in theory, that will eliminate greenhouse gas emissions that are emitted by natural gas. That's absurd. That's absurd. That's creating more cost to housing. So all you're doing is exacerbating more cost and forcing more people not to be able to own or rent. Craziness. Local government, stop it, get out of the way. State government, I think, at least in my lifetime, this is unbelievable. You've got incredible leaders like Scott Wiener, Senator Scott Wiener, David Chu, and Gavin Newsom, and others who continually lead the charge to make local government stop, so they can, continue to build housing, because they see the statewide, impact that it's creating on the economy. And so continue what you're doing, state government, because you're doing a better job than you've ever done before.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, last question. What does your brand stand for? I ask this as a branding expert, I build business brands and personal brands. So first, your business brand. What does your business brand stand for? And then if any different as a personal brand, then, elaborate on that.
Well, the personal brand would be about, being from the South Bay and creating product in the South Bay that makes you recognize Republic Urban Properties. So in other words, you built at that transit station, you recreated that corner that has a nice restaurant in it now. So someone that does mixed use well, and that understands mixed use and not afraid of it, and that can create something that is a benefit from a lifestyle perspective, but also from a tax perspective. So, again, our trademark is we build landmarks, and I think that's a little corny or old and cliche, but I think it remains true if you translate it back to our brand, which is building mixed use and building it well and reshaping a neighborhood.
All right, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, so what I really miss, and I hate to see them disappearing, are these mama papa local colors, local taste, local elements of that really adds to the diversity of a culture of a city. I mean, you go to Europe, they still have those old stores, some of them more than 100 years old. And here we see are all these franchise chains, Taco Bell, and even Barnes and Noble, where I took my little boys, now they're all grown-ups, for just go to the local Barnes and Noble. Now that's completely vanished. It'll be a very sad way of living that you only have Amazon and Walmart and Safeway. And it's just like, what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why we as property owners need to foster mom and pop and small business. For example, Republic will spend a lot of dollars on tenant improvements to make sure that mom and pop can spend its money maybe on the other startup operation ventures. And so all you can do is create spaces and opportunities for small business, and hope that you've got the right location for them to foster, to grow and foster their businesses.
Right, and they will grow much better if they build the brand first, and that's what we help them and serve their growth. Well, thank you so much. Exactly 1 hour. Really appreciate it very much. I will have this made into a podcast, video, and transcript, slightly edited. So we will get it out. You get it out. I get it out, and hopefully, the Silicon Valley monopolies and the state and local governments will hear your message loud and clear. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity. You're wonderful.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.